why do we matter as a church? Why does Christview matter to this community? And we started to look at that, and I asked a very simple question, and I asked the question, who would represent Jesus in this community if we didn't? And the conclusion, the answer I gave at the end was basically this: nobody would. Nobody would. So this week, I want to talk about our obligation as a church and as Christians to represent Jesus Christ to this world that we are surrounded by. Now, this is obviously one of the areas that the church and Christians have become very weak in over the last several decades in our culture. And I believe there's a direct cause for this, why you have seen the church shrinking, why you have seen it losing its influence. And one of the reasons that I think we've become so weak is this: we have lived in a Christian culture for some 200 years. And when you live in a safe environment, it leads to apathy. And that's what I think you have seen happen in the church, is living in a Christian culture. We've always just gone, well, the government will legislate how people are supposed to behave, and we've become content with that and went, the government will take care of the poor, the government will take care of these issues, the government will legislate morality, and we've become content with that. But here's the deal, and I know not everyone's on board with this yet, but you need to kind of accept where we are. We're not a Christian nation anymore. It's just not who we are. That day has come and it is past. We are no longer a Christian nation. If you are 35 or younger, you totally understand this. If you are 35 or older, you still might be struggling to come to grasp with that. But we are not a Christian nation anymore. What that means is this: we no longer can just meet in our church buildings feeling content that the government will legislate godly behavior. What I mean by that also is this: we can't just sit back and go, we as a church can gather in here and do nothing except with ourselves and expect the rest of the world to take care of itself and the government will take care of everything for us. It's not going to happen. I'm not saying Christians shouldn't be involved in politics. I think they should. But I'm also saying at the same time, politics are not the answer to humanity's problems. It's not going to be fixed by a governmental system. The church has too often become an us versus them mentality. And when the church takes an us as Christians versus them society mentality, what happens is this, is we forget about love. And the church very much, and Christians very much, become about basically demanding people to behave in certain patterns. And when you demand people to behave in such a way and you don't also have love combined, what you end up becoming is very much the Pharisees, who Jesus couldn't even stand to be around. Jesus, his biggest battles when you read the New Testament is not with non-believers. It's with the Christians who went, this is just how everybody ought to live and all the check boxes, but didn't love anybody. And he goes, those are the guys that just irritate me because they're demanding lifestyle choices. They're demanding people to live and behave in a certain way, but they go, but I can tell you don't love me. So you just become an annoying voice in my life. And if you look at the church today, in a lot of ways, that's how the church is described to our culture. And it would explain why we have lost a lot of our influence in our nation over the last several decades. Now, that has led to another result. What that has led to is this. As the church has declined in influence, it has led this new generation to seek out different types of churches. And one of the big types of churches is, you've all heard of these before, mega churches, right? Everyone's heard of mega churches. They pop up all over the place in our country now. There are more mega churches now than there ever has been in the United States, but we have less church attendance than there's ever been before in the United States. So they kind of coincide. And what you find in mega churches is this. You will find they are less personable. There's really no real accountability because you just kind of get lost in the crowd, so there's not a personal accountability to Christians. You will also find this. They are more entertaining. They are fun to go to. If you've gone to a mega church, they are a much bigger, I don't want to say that because I'm not anti-big church. I was at a big church before here, okay? But they are a much more entertaining show-like, which has a benefit to another generation. At the same time, they do big things. Because they have such a collective group of people, they do big things in the community, they do things. So the people that attend those churches feel like, you know what, I'm really doing something with my life because we're doing big things as a church. But here's the problem. I've started to do studies on these, and studies show that people that attend mega churches are no more participants in getting their hands dirty at representing Christ in this world than people who attend smaller churches. There's no greater percentage of people who actually are getting their hands dirty and doing the ministry of God. So what I want to remind you this morning as we start is this, is God is never going to be impressed and he's never going to be disappointed in you based on the church that you attend. He's not going to be impressed if you attend a great church, a growing church, or a large church when he's evaluating you and what you did with your life. He's not going to go, you know what, you really didn't do much for the kingdom, but man, you attended a really good church. He's not going to say that. He's going to evaluate you and what you did. At the same time, he's not going to be disappointed because you attended an unhealthy church, or you attended a dying church, or you attended a small church. When he's evaluating what you did with your life for the kingdom, he's not going to look at you and go, man, you went to a small church. I'm really disappointed in you. But you did a lot of good stuff for the kingdom, but man, I'm really disappointed in you. Or you went to an unhealthy church. You weren't partying on health, but you went to an unhealthy church and you were fantastic, but the church you attended was really unhealthy and I'm really disappointed in you. You're never going to hear those words from God. Don't be fooled. The church is not some building you attend on Sundays. The church is us collectively every day of our lives when we leave this building. That is the church talked about in the scriptures. So, this morning, I want to take some time and I want to talk about what our role is as a church to represent Jesus Christ to this world that we find ourselves in every day. When you read the scriptures, you will find that believers in Jesus Christ are, one, they're called, and two, they should be driven every day of their lives to represent Jesus with whoever they are interacting with. I'm going to read you some scriptures, and these are paraphrases of these because I have a lot of them. They're all of them that are listed on the front of your program there. I'm just going to paraphrase these so you get a general idea, and these aren't all of them in scriptures, but it gives you a good feel for things. The first group of scriptures is this. It is people who had reactions after they met Jesus Christ and they had interaction with him and they encountered Jesus. Here's their reactions. First one is Matthew 9. It says, they went out and they spread his fame. In Mark chapter 5, it says, he proclaimed the great things Jesus had done for him. In Mark 7, it said, they spread the good news about him. In Luke 4, it says, the news about Jesus spread. In Luke 8, he went through the town proclaiming the great things Jesus had done for him. John 4, many believed in Jesus because of the woman. In John 5, he went to the Jewish leader to tell him that Jesus healed him. One of the things, a common thread and theme that you see in the scriptures, when people encounter Jesus and he did something in their lives, they do what? They go tell people. To the extent there's several occasions, I only put in several occasions where he tells people, don't go tell people. Because basically he was trying to not get his crowds too overwhelming. And he's telling some people, just keep it to yourself, don't tell anyone. And you find several scriptures where it says that people still go tell people because they just can't contain themselves. They have to go tell people what Jesus did in their lives. So you see that. At the same time, we see multiple times in scriptures what I refer to as calls, meaning God calls you to do something. You see multiple calls for us to represent Jesus to the world we live in. Here's some of those scriptures. Matthew chapter 4. I will show you how to fish for people. Matthew 5, Jesus says, let your good deeds shine. Matthew 9, Jesus says, pray for more kingdom workers. Matthew 28, he says, go make disciples. In Luke 12, he says, acknowledge me publicly. In Acts 1, it says, you will be my witnesses. Romans 1, don't be ashamed of the gospel. Romans 10, how will they hear about Jesus unless you tell them? 1 Corinthians 9, I do everything to share the good news of Jesus. 2 Corinthians 2, he uses us to spread the news about Jesus. 2 Corinthians 5, we speak for Christ. Colossians 4, make the most of every opportunity to share Jesus. And 1 Peter 3, be ready to explain your faith. All right? There is no doubt in the scriptures that we have been called, what we have been called to do and what we should desire to do in our lives, and that is to represent Jesus Christ to the world around us. You can make no case, you can make no legitimate excuse to say that is not what your call and what your desire as a Christian should be in your life. So my question I want to explore this morning is this. why do we stink at it? Okay? It's not usually what you hear in church, but it is a legitimate question. Why are we so terrible at representing Jesus to the world around us? If we're all honest, we can all probably say we're not the greatest representation of Jesus in our, seeing the greatest results in our life of representing Jesus to the world around us, right? We don't necessarily like to say it because we know the scriptures demand it, but if we look at our lives and we see what's happening in the church nationwide, it's pretty clear what the answer is, and it's just we're not doing it real well. So I'm going to deal with the top 6 excuses or reasons that I believe have weakened us. And I'm going to give you reasoning of why you should move beyond those beliefs, beyond those thoughts in your life so that we do a better job representing Christ to the world around us and the people that we have interaction with. So these are the top 6 reasons. Most of you, I would assume all of us can relate to at least one of these. Most of us will relate to multiple numbers of these, okay, of what has made us weak. Some people will say this: I can't represent Christ because I don't have the proper knowledge. I hear this one all the time. I don't have the knowledge. I don't know what to say. I'm afraid I'll mess it up if I do say it, and I just don't know the right words, the right doctrine, or whatever to say, and I'll say something wrong. So they go, I'm just not going to talk about them at all. I'm not going to bring up topics about them. I'm not going to get engaged in conversations about my faith because I'm afraid I just don't have the proper knowledge. Let me help you understand this. Sharing your faith, representing Jesus Christ, is not dependent on you having perfect knowledge of your faith. Okay, it is not dependent on that. Let me tell you what it's more dependent on: getting to know people and trusting the Holy Spirit to speak through you. That's much more valuable than having all the correct answers to everything. Let me explain it, and I've explained this once before, but give you an idea. When I stand up here and speak, it can be intimidating when you're dealing with 150 people sitting here, and I have people from every educational background, every economic background, and you have to speak so that everyone understands what's being said and hopefully walks away with what God wants you to say that morning and what God wants to communicate, okay? It can be fairly intimidating. That's why most of you don't stand up here and speak each week. Or if you ever have, you sweat it out all week long and you're just like, oh man, that's going to be rough, okay? Because it seems to be overwhelming. What brings me peace is this: I know in the scriptures that I can trust the Spirit to speak for me. And I know in the scriptures that the Spirit lives in you as much as he does in me. And if he wants to communicate something to Tammy Whalen over here and I don't say it perfectly, if he wants Tammy to know it, she'll know it when we're done. I trust that. Or Betty. Maybe Betty's sitting there and I say the exact same thing. I trust that with the exact same words, the Spirit can communicate to both of them 2 different things that they needed to hear, and God will do what God needs to do with it. Same thing in your daily walk with people. Befriend people. Stop worrying so much about having the perfect answers and get involved in conversations and trust God will lead it. There have been multiple times that I have said stupid things that I get done with the conversation and go, I don't even know what I said anymore. And the person will be like, wow, that really helped. Okay, it didn't help me because I'm totally confused and I'm the one that said it. But hey, if it helped you, God bless you. Okay, but God has a way of working that way. A better way of looking at this is this way too. Representing Jesus Christ isn't always about just words. And I would almost say this: rarely anymore in our culture is it just about words. It's about intentional living, about making every moment, everything you're doing intentional to represent Jesus Christ. Paul says it like this in 1 Corinthians 9. He says, when I am with the weak, when I'm with those who are weak, he says, I share their weaknesses, for I want to bring the weak to Christ. He says, yes, I try to find common ground with everyone, doing everything I can to save some. Paul's process was not just all words. Paul's was, I'm going to share your life with you, and through building a relationship with you, I will share Jesus Christ with you, and you will see it in my actions, not just my words, and you will know I'm your friend, and you will know I love you before I sit there and start criticizing you or tell you that you need to change things or there's sin in your life. You're going to first know, first and foremost, I love you, and I care about you, and I want to get to know who you are. That's the first thing that you see from Paul. So you have to be intentional in living. It's not just all about knowledge. So to sit there and go, I can't represent Christ, I can't share my faith with people because I don't have all the correct knowledge, it's not a good excuse. That just means you don't want to trust the Spirit and faith to bring something through that you can't comprehend or you don't know how to put together right now. And instead of going to the unknown, you'll play it safe and go, I'll just stay out of it. Not a good excuse. The second thing, some people will say, I don't have contact with non-believers. Hear this one a lot, okay? As you become an older Christian, this is very true. As you become older physically and been a Christian, older that way as well over time, you start to form a bubble of mostly Christian people around you. Okay, that just starts to develop. You get this bubble of Christian people. Of all people in the world, I'm the most bubbled person in the world, okay? Unless I intentionally try to get out of it. I work at this church 40 plus hours a week. I'm at this building, okay? I'm not going to meet a whole lot of non-Christians sitting at this building. I don't get to work with a bunch of non-Christians like some of you do. I am in a bubble. I work around Heather and, well, Jennifer and Heather. Well, I'm kind of bubbled around Christians. But I am in a bubbled world. When I go out and people find out I'm a minister, do you think they act the same way they always do with you? No. They all have to clean it up somehow. And that's why I hate people knowing I'm a minister, because somehow as soon as that comes out, it's like bubble time, and I get someone that's not really who they are, and they become the minister thing and who they're supposed to be in front of ministers. Here's the thing. If you say you're in a bubble, you don't have non-Christians around you, here's a simple solution. Go find some non-Christians and become friends with them and hang out with them. This is easy, all right? Get out of your bubble. Intentionally get out of your bubble. Let me tell you two ways I do. I volunteer over at Columbus School here. By happen chance, God opened an opportunity through Jennifer a year and a half ago or something to work with their Kids for Christ program. I saw that as an opportunity. Great. I'll go over and I'll get into that school. And I go over early every week so I can shoot the breeze with the office staff and some of them and get to know them. Do I have to do that? No. I could just walk to Kids of Christ and do that thing for 45 minutes and be gone. But I'm intentional going and shooting breeze with the office staff and shooting breeze after times with people to build relationships. I know all my neighbors that live within 2 houses on every side of me and across the street. I know all of them. One of them doesn't like me anymore, but I know the rest of them. Okay? One of them I had to call the cops on, and then I had to call them directly because the cops didn't come. So then it was me calling them saying, turn your car off and stuff like that. But anyways, the other 7 really like me. But here's why. I'm intentional to go to get to know them. If I drive in my garage after work and there's 2 guys standing in the front yard, I leave my garage instead of going inside and I go over and talk to them. Why? Because I'm intentional about my life and I'm going to go be around non-Christians so I can start building those relationships. Half of them don't know I'm a minister, the other half do, and then the word spreads. But I don't use that to why I'm coming over to talk to you. I look at it as I've got to get out of my bubble. I have to meet non-Christians. So if you are going, you know what? I just don't have Christians around. I just have Christians around. Go find some non-Christians to befriend. Jesus did it to such an extent. You see in Mark 2, the Pharisees, the religious people, are getting ticked at him because in their words, he's hanging out with the scum, the sinners, and not spending enough time with them. Jesus illustrated this, which is I'm not just going to spend the time with Christians, with the people who are in tune with me. I'm going to go spend time with people who don't agree with me, and I'm going to befriend them, and I'm going to start working with them. All right? Some people are going to say this, I'm scared to fail. I'm scared to represent Jesus Christ. I'm scared to be a failure. And some of you even say this, I'll make a bigger mess than they already are because I'll really mess it up. So I'm afraid to fail. And I want you to know this right now. Jesus never called you to be successful. He just called you to represent him. He never guaranteed success. In all actuality, when you read Romans chapter 10 with Paul, Paul says this. He says, not everyone will welcome the good news. Paul goes, not everyone's going to welcome the good news. If you know his life, not a lot of people are going to welcome the good news and treat him horrifically. Jesus, in Matthew chapter 13, it says he went to his hometown and he's preaching there and doing some miracles, and it says they refused to believe in him. Even Jesus failed horrifically at representing himself to some degree with people. Okay? In John chapter 6, verse 66, we read this. Jesus gives some rough teachings, and it says, many of his disciples turned away and deserted him. Okay, this is Jesus Christ, a huge failure. He's sitting there, and he's preaching to him, and it says, everybody starts to desert him because of the things he said. It gets so bad, he actually looks over to his 12 key guys, and he says, are you guys bailing on me too? Okay, you ever been there before where everyone leaves you and you're wondering so is even my closest people going to leave me? And he looks and he goes, Are you 12 going to bail too because everyone else has took off? And their response is this: we've given up everything for you. We have nowhere else to go, and you are the only guy that has the answers to life. So we're with you. We don't even know what you're saying either. We're kind of taken aback and offended. But we've got no other option at this point because we have given up everything to follow you. Jesus himself was a failure at representing himself. He wasn't always successful. It wasn't always massive crowds. The guy fails multiple times along with most of the early church leaders. They weren't always successful. So if you're walking around going, man, if I fail, God's going to be upset with me. He failed multiple times to get people to follow him. Okay? It's okay. It's not a fear you should have. Some people will say this: I'm afraid of coming off as judgmental. This is a big one in our culture now. I am afraid to represent Jesus Christ because if I put any type of standard out there, I will be labeled in this culture as a judgmental person and people will dislike me and I will be labeled that way. I'll be labeled as intolerant, judgmental, and I'll be labeled as a jerk and an unloving person. Okay? Do we all agree with that? That's where we're getting at this culture. Let me tell you how you deal with that one. This is the best way I could come up with this, to explain this to you. If you have a friend, say it's a female friend who's married, and you come to find out one day she comes and she sits before you and she has a black eye, and you find out she comes to tell you that her husband just beat her up last night. And as you're talking to her, you find out he beats her all the time. Usually he just doesn't leave marks, but he beats her all the time. And you understand right there clearly this woman's being abused. What does a good, loving person do? You speak up and you do everything you can to get them out of that situation, do you not? You have no fear, hesitancy at all at that moment to say, you know what, we'll give her name Jill because that's my sister's name, so we'll just use Jill. And not you, Jillian, but my sister. We'll use the name Jill. Jill, I'll do everything I can to get you out of that situation, but you can't go back to that situation right now if that's happening to you. You're being abused constantly. That's not healthy for you to be in. You've got to get out. I will do whatever I can to rescue you out of that situation. I don't care if he gets mad at me. I don't care if family members get mad at me. I don't care if the world finds out and you don't want that out in that news and see how people... I don't care right now because I love you too much to send you back there. Okay? We would do that in a heartbeat, any of us. If we didn't do that and you've found out someone met with you and you knew that they were being abused by their spouse for years and you never said a word to them and even talked about it and they told you about it and you were just like, oh, that's good, move on. Would anyone consider that person a loving person? No, you'd say they're insensitive. How could you do that? Here's why I'm telling you that. When you meet with people who are living the way the world tells them to live, folks, the best way to describe it is they're being abused by the world. You can see the broken lives. You can see the anguish. You can see the guilt. You can see the turmoil happening in their life. John 10:10, as they keep reading, the thief's purpose is to steal, kill, and destroy. You can see that in their lives. You are loving them by trying to attempt to get them out of an abusive situation. And you shouldn't be ashamed of that. You shouldn't worry about that. You are trying to get them out of being abused on a daily basis and get them to something healthy and something better in their life. So why not stand up and tell them, you know what? Let me do anything I can to get you out of this situation. Not in an abusive with a husband and wife, but in an abusive where the world and the world's ways are abusing you and beating you up day in and day out. And sometimes you don't get to see all the scars, but every once in a while you see the black eye. And that's where God gives you the opportunity to get in there and go, how can I help you? How do I get you out of this situation? What can I do for you? Stop worrying about coming off as being judgmental. The person that needs help doesn't really care. They need to know the love of Christ. They need to know someone's there to help them and rescue them. That's what we're called to do. Now, some people are going to think this, and I'm not going to say this because very few people say this. The crazy nuts say this. But a lot of people think this subconsciously, and what they think is this: certain people actually deserve to go to hell because of what they've done or how they're living. So what they do is they will reject love from them and go, you know what? I'm a Christian. I see your lifestyle. I see what you're up to, and I see what you've been doing and what you have done. And in all honesty, that person deserves to go to hell, and I'm not representing Jesus to them because I want to see them burn. Let's be honest. Do we not see that? Westboro Church, you see their signs? Legalistic churches, you ever hear them talk? You ever hear the hell and brimstone preachers up on stage? ripping people to shreds and telling them how they're all going to burn, and they never express love to them? That's what we're dealing with. So with that said, some people have that mentality, which is because of what they're doing, the way they're living, they don't deserve to know Jesus Christ. They deserve to go to hell. They deserve to burn there. They deserve to be in the absence of Christ for the rest of their lives. And they actually believe that, so they will withhold love from those people. And what I want you to know is if that's anywhere in your mindset, here's what you need to know. We all deserve hell. Every single one of us deserves hell. None of us are better than anyone else. The only thing that gives us an advantage is we know Jesus Christ. We all have hidden sins. We all have failures. We all have things that we have broken our relationship with Christ, just like everybody else. The only difference is we've been redeemed. And to think that we're better than other people so we can withhold representing Christ to them or withhold his love from them is just stupid. And it does a disservice to the kingdom of God. And we need to make sure that does not become part of our mindset, our mentality. Finally, there's this. I think a lot of us have forgotten what's really at stake. And what's really at stake is this, people's eternity. I think we've forgotten this a lot of times. We're not playing some silly game where we get to just turn it off and turn it on whenever we feel like it, and if we're having a good day or a bad day. We're not playing a game, church. We're not playing a game, Christians. Every day we are given an opportunity, or we pass up the opportunity to impact people's lives for eternity. Every single day we're given those chances. We have no good excuse for not successfully representing Jesus every day of our lives. Let me remind you, the church you attend is never going to play a role in God's accounting for your life. You and I as individuals are called to represent Jesus every single day. And together as the church, we then have the opportunity to change the society around us for the glory of God. So my call to you this morning is this. Let's go start changing the lives of the people of our community with the power and the hope that comes from the message of Jesus Christ. We are to represent him every breathing moment that we have until the day we die. We are called to represent Jesus and change this world for his kingdom and for his glory. Would you pray with me?